Hey folks, a quick note before you dive into this episode. Unfortunately, there was a post-production issue with Joe's microphone during the first two segments of this episode. It's all good in segment 3. We just want to give you a heads up before you dive in to an otherwise great episode. Hope you enjoy. Welcome to Speak of the Devils, the premier podcast for Sun Devil football. I'm Brad Denny with 3TV.
And I'm Joe Healy with DevilsDigest.com.
Joe, there are no off days in the off season, and that's especially true for any student athlete grinding away in the hot summer months, getting ready for the football season ahead. And you know what? A lot of the stuff you normal fans just don't typically see. So we're going to peel back the curtain a little bit today, thanks to a special guest here in studio with us.
Yeah, and it starts today, but it doesn't just stop today. We've got some really, really cool things in mind for this season, for the foreseeable future. Talking about getting a look behind the curtain at how things operate in Sun Devil football. You're going to see just that with this new awesome idea that we've got. You know, we've been doing this for a while. We are almost on 13 years.
13 years, yeah.
Unreal. But we got some new wrinkles for you. You can rest assured with that. So we're going to start that off today. We are welcoming with us here, and very proud, happy to have Sun Devil offensive lineman Ben Coleman joining us. And like I said, we got some things in store for the future, but for right now, Ben, thank you so much for joining us.
I appreciate it. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. So yeah, obviously you've the middle of the off season's going on right now. A lot of hard work with you guys. You know, we're just kind of overall the vibe and the culture right now. Culture's in year 2. What's overall kind of vibe of this program at the moment?
I think just team chemistry, trying to merge as much as we can, and as quick as we can. Time flies in the summer. You know, we're about to approaching our first break. We have 2 more weeks. We approach our first break, and then we're in our last stretch before fall camp, so we don't have much time. So coach is just really harping on Coach Joanne, Coach Dillingham, just being able to hang out with each other outside of just the workouts or in the weight room. So I think that's just really important, whether that means going to the pool, watching the games, watching fights. Coach Dillingham, always buys the fight anytime we ask him, and that's, it's a blessing. We're fortunate enough to have him do that, but it allows a space for just us to be able to hang out, still in the building, but, outside of, anything football related.
So what's his view on like pro wrestling events? I'm a big WWE fan. Does he get those? Is he getting WrestleMania for you guys? Does he take real care of you?
I mean, he does, but I haven't heard anything about the WWE, but I knew a couple of guys went when they were out here in Arizona, so I think you have to connect with those guys. But I saw a couple Instagram stories, a couple of guys went. Me personally, I'm not the biggest WWE fan. Sorry.
Conyers was. That was, but he's at a different school now, so we need somebody to fill that void.
Right.
That's like my guilty pleasure.
No, right.
You know what I'm saying? So I guess, I think we should let the I'm not going to say that animal because we don't do that around these parts. The other animal out of the bag, because we don't want people fast forwarding, right? And we don't want people distracted. We're talking about these new ideas. So Ben is going to join us on a regular basis. We've concocted this little harebrained scheme that we all think that y'all are going to love. Some, again, behind the scenes type of stuff that Ben is going to show us. The life of not only a college athlete, but obviously a Sun Devil and all the things that go along with that, whether that's at home, on the road. We got some creative ideas. This is just getting started. We think we got a name for it, but, we didn't agree 100% before the show. So I'm not going to disclose that quite yet. We can keep a little bit of suspense there, but that's basically what we're referring to. You're going to get to know Ben Coleman, and trust me, to know him is to love him. He's an incredibly bright guy, awesome personality for this. You're really going to enjoy this. And you're really going to be grateful that he's a Sun Devil, not just for what you're going to see him pushing dudes around on the field this fall, but the behind-the-scenes stuff that you're going to see from that as well. So, Ben, obviously you came to ASU by way of that transfer portal from Cal a little over a year ago. We've heard these crazy stories about the transfer portal, whether it's, guys getting lit up with dozens of text messages and DMs from like the second they hit send on that, or School A is talking trash about School B and just all this madness. It looks like you were in the portal for just a few weeks there in November, December of 2022. It wasn't really like a long stay.
Correct.
What was that experience like for you? Was it a crazy thing, or was it a little bit more low-key? Basically, how did just the chaos of it all go for you, if it was the case?
Well, I think it is chaos. You get a lot of texts one day, maybe you don't get a text another day, maybe right there in the middle. And then new schools are approaching every day, especially with being in the December transfer portal. I think is different than being in the spring transfer portal, just because bowl games, right? Some teams have bowl games, so the focus lies different. You're kind of working double duty. You have you're trying to sign high school kids, and then you're trying to sign portal kids. And, unfortunately, the portal kids kind of has taken priority over the high school kids. But, the transfer portal was really in the first couple waves when I went in. And I really wanted, I told my dad I wanted it to be kind of quick. I didn't want to take all these trips. They're exhausting. I don't think they're the most comfortable. You're flying across the country. And I think it's all cool to see different places, but I think it was really important for me. I know what I wanted. And familiar faces. That was important to me to be able to know people. Coach Tuatelli recruited me for a long time. In high school, he recruited me at 2 different schools. He was at Army and at New Mexico. In both of those spots, he knew I wasn't going there, but the relationship is what mattered. Every time he came, I was fortunate enough to be pulled out of class and just be able to begin that relationship, because my dad always told me, when you meet people, you never know how far that relationship will take you. So I think that's really important, just as far as like a life lesson. And it was full circle. Obviously, being coached by Coach Regal was full circle. Coach Amy, I went on a visit, unfortunately, to the school down south. My head coach's son, Lorenzo Burns, played cornerback over there, plays for the Birmingham Stallions right now. Obviously, they just won again, but, went down there, and, him being the big brother he was, and me being young, and I was with Trey Brown. And so we were at the school down south just riding around, and Coach Regal was a coach at the time, so that was the first time I met him. And then also Coach Amy was a coach at the time over there too. So it was kind of full circle when they were added to the staff here. And then Coach Tuatelli was kind of a late addition. And then obviously you had Coach Baldwin, who was the OC here last year, for a time being. So, the familiar faces kind of really what drew me. The only person I felt like I really didn't know was Coach Dillingham. So I think that was kind of ironic how it worked out.
There you go. So I think a lot of folks probably know this about you, at least the ones that are really in tune. But for those who don't, give them a lesson about it, even though, obviously you made your arrival to Arizona State a little over a year ago. The family ties to ASU go very, very deep in the Coleman family. So tell us about the family tree of Sun Devils that you've got in your family.
Okay, perfect. So my mom was a Sun Devil, went to Chaparral High School, and then all her siblings, so she has 2 older brothers, and then 1 older sister. They all went to ASU, and then she has a younger sister that went to ASU as well. They were forced by my grandpa to all go to ASU. They didn't have a choice. It's kind of funny. My mom told me she was going to go to Stanford, which is gross in my eyes, being a Cal alum, so I can't really believe she didn't want to go there. But that's where she said she wanted to go, and, my grandpa said she didn't have a choice. And I think she's fortunate enough that she was a Sun Devil. And then, to continue that, 2 of my cousins. So that would be my mom's uncle, the youngest of the 2 older brothers. He had 2 daughters that attended ASU. And so I think it was kind of cool that I was, we thought that lineage kind of died out. And so then now with me being here, hopefully, somebody else joins to be a Sun Devil sometime soon.
Now, was that a possibility the first time around coming out of high school? I think that's kind of maybe the natural question folks might ask is like, how come we didn't have you for 5 years?
It was. My uncle tells me all the time when we played, when Arizona State played at Cal, and I think might have been we were both ranked. Chase Garber was our quarterback. He got hurt. 2019. It was a night game. And
you had that stud linebacker that
Evan Weaver
spun off. Evan Weaver.
The big 89. So those are great memories. So that night game. I remember I didn't travel that game as far as to the hotel. So my parents actually ended up staying at the same hotel that ASU football was at. So I went there, before the game, and then obviously left early, went to the game. And I just remember my uncle, talking to Herm, and he was saying, my nephew, he's a freshman, he plays offensive line, and he told my uncle, he was like, oh, we should have came here because he would have played. Of course, Ben Scott's at class, Ladarius Henderson is at class too as well. So, I thought that was pretty funny. And he was like, well, he went to Cal. So, of course, Herm Edwards was like, I understand. He didn't make a bad choice with there. But coming out of high school, I'm going to be real, I thought it was so hot here. And, being young, I came to Arizona State. I have so many videos. I have a picture of me at the Territorial Cup with N'Keal Harry. I'm in the background and N'Keal Harry's dancing. So, I really did want to go. I got to pull that photo up. But, I really did want to go to ASU. My mom went to ASU. And I think, I just kind of went more with Cal, with the staff, currently at the time. And Herm and that staff was very new. So I kind of felt more comfortable with Cal at that time.
So unfortunately, last season lost due to injury. Learned recently that you suffered an injury in high school. So I was curious if this is your first experience with a major injury. But how did that experience in high school, did that mentally prepare you? I mean, I know you never want to go through that sort of thing multiple times in your life, but did that kind of help with the process? And what did you learn about yourself throughout that recovery that you faced over the course of the past year?
Yeah, I think just being able to build that mental toughness. I think it's hard being able to be injured and sit out in 2 key points. In 2019, that would have been the fall of 2018, the fall of 2018. And that was tough. We won a championship. I told my head coach when I came there from Vista Marietta that we were going to win a championship. And, I was going to get the right guys there, do whatever I needed to do to lead them to a championship. And I thought that, we were primed to do that. Spring ball was great. All the coaches were coming in for me and Travion Brown. So I think it was a perfect setup. We were stacked all along, across from DB, running back, quarterback. It didn't really matter. Everybody who we had on the schedule really didn't have a shot. And then so when that injury hit in the spring, it was devastating. It hurt. I don't even know if my dad knew, but I never tried to cry in front of him. But I called his best friend. It's like my uncle. His name is Lou, and I called him, and I was like, man, I don't understand. But I think just the mental toughness, it's a part of football. It builds you up as a person, as an individual. And I kind of got that mental break. I like to say now that I had that injury, I had the best senior year possible because it was really carefree. And then this last year, I think I just learned a lot more about myself. I think it came in a situation where, I was desperate to kind of make that statement. I'm coming from Cal. I felt like I didn't perform my best, the year before I came from Cal. I felt like I played out of position, but I felt like I knew I could play it. And I felt like there was a lot of moving pieces that were going on. And I think personally, I thought I did, what I needed to do to prepare, but I understood that, you just didn't do enough. And that's important for everybody to realize that, even if you think that you did do enough, in reality that you can look in the mirror and say, hey, you didn't do enough. You got to go back to the drawing board and find a way to get this thing done. So coming to ASU, I had a different mindset. I was excited to play. I knew what it was. I knew it was going to be a quick rebuild, and I wanted to be a part of that. And so I think it was, from that point on, it kind of seemed like it was a rolling events of stuff that happened to us. But it's no pity for us. I think we still could have got the job done on in various facets. But I just think, I was able to sit back for a long time, or in a long time from that senior year. I was able to, really get close to my dad, really get close with coaches and see football from a different perspective. And then, fast forward essentially 4 years later, that same thing got to happen again at the college level where I was able to take a break, mentally be stronger, and kind of just sit back for a second, understand who do you want to be, what do you want your legacy to be, and how do you want to perform because, it happens quick. I remember at Camp T, we had to write letters, and that's something that Coach Dillingham has us do. And essentially over a little bit over a month now, we're going to be opening those letters again. It seemed like it was just yesterday. And I remember just writing down and just saying, hey, you're going to remember, just remember, everybody kind of being disappointed about you being injured, right? From the coaches to, to the trainers, to your family, right? To your girlfriend being sad, just about your situation, because they know that you worked very hard to be in a position, to really take that next step to the next level. So I think that the biggest thing I learned from is just being patient, right? Run your race.
Yeah. Now tell us about that. That's a really interesting thing that you just mentioned about Camp T. So they had you write letters. Was it like a time capsule thing that you opened later on down the road? Or
yeah, it's a time capsule thing, and I think that's something that Dillingham kind of incorporated. I think that's really cool. Obviously, probably nobody knows about it. And obviously, what's unfortunate that some of the guys, with the nature of the transfer portal, that they'll never be able to get those letters. And I'm sure, Dillingham will make sure that those guys get those letters. But yeah, it's kind of like a time capsule thing. You come back the next year because you have to write goals down. So you got to understand, did you do what you were supposed to do to put yourself in position to achieve those goals? And that's something that Dillingham preaches. And so I think I have, and I think I'm excited because once again, you also forget some things that you wrote. Like, what did you write about, about yourself, right? And were those things meaningful? Were those things true? So I think a lot of those guys are excited because I haven't forgot about it because I was injured, but I think a lot of guys have. And when that time comes, I'm sure we'll be enjoying Camp T. When they bring that basket out for letters, I think it's going to be like, oh, man, what did I write? Like, people are going to take time to really, really reread, at that time, where was I at in my headspace, right? Was I sad? Was I mad? Was I happy? And where did I want to be a year from now? And have I gotten to that point? Have I exceeded it? Or maybe I'm quite short and I need to make a couple adjustments, right before the season starts.
So how would you compare the culture of the program overall right here today compared to when you arrived in the winter time of last year?
I think totally different, just from personnel. What Coach Dillingham has preached is the same, right? Lifers, little things, intensity, family, education, response, success. He's preached those same things. But I just think the people in the room are different. I think that's very important because Dillingham can preach all he wants. He can work as hard as he wants, but if the people in the room aren't the right people to absorb the information, it just goes dull. It doesn't go anywhere. So I think that's really important is that being able to incorporate guys who really want to buy in, guys who really want to be at Arizona State. And I can't say that guys in the past wanted to or didn't. And I think that'll be up for them to really know at the bottom of their heart. But the one thing I can say is that now that the guys that are here now, they all want to be here. And I think that you can see it from competing from the offensive line room, from the stable of running backs, right? Everybody competes. And coming from the different background, I didn't know how it was at first. I thought it was going to be rocky in the spring, right? A lot of guys getting into competitions, right? A lot of arguments. They're playing the same position. But then as it went on, that competition got healthier and healthier and healthier. And then I tell them all the time, like, you brought the right people in here that want to be in here. And we were that first class that wanted to be at Arizona State. And this second wave that has came through, they want to be at Arizona State. And we're surrounded by coaches that also want to be here.
Kenny Dillingham likes to say that you guys have the most fun while working the hardest of any program in the country. And made it the national news last week or a couple weeks ago when he had the video game prank. And it was kind of fun. Obviously, it was a good time. It seemed like everybody was having good fun. Walk our listeners and viewers through your view of that day, but also perhaps in a larger sense, what that moment kind of maybe says about the relationship between Kenny Dillingham as the head of the program and the players and the bond that's been forming over the last year and a half.
So I think everybody will be a little bit hesitant now, but the trust is always going to be there, and I think that's important with your head coach. You want to be able to trust him, right? And he's such big on competing, right? So then everybody, of course, are like, hey, he's going to make us compete for them. He's not going to give us anything for free. And he lives by that. Nothing is free. And so that's why guys just went, right into that plank. We had a player run practice. After the player run practice, the coaches came out and were like, hey, we just had someone to tell you guys real quick. We were, fortunate enough to get a couple video games. And I knew from the start, I'm like, I don't know. But he's like, hey, we're going to do a plank for it. Some guys were like, this is going to be rough for me. Some guys were like, hey, I can win this video game. Guys like Melquan Stovall, Ronnie Bimmage, hey, lighter guys, so that they're still strong guys, right? But, lighter by nature. And, they went after it. And I think, when they got down the plank, I got back up. I was like, hey, I'm not doing this for the video game. Not, like I said, not a big video game guy. But, it was funny to see everybody compete for it. But I think that just says the nature of the team. Everybody wants to compete. It doesn't matter what it is. It was a video game. There was a fake video game in there. Everybody was laughing about it, joking, clowning the guys that won. But I think that just shows it was new guys, right? Alton was one guy. Melquan was another guy. Two different guys. One that just got here and a guy that's been here for a while. And Melquan's been around the block in college for a long time. But just the nature of that, Coach Dillingham just, implements it just to compete. Everything is to compete, right? And it doesn't matter if it's a video game. You play to win. It doesn't matter if it's if it's going to be in the school whether it be a test or whether it be office hours. You compete to be that guy to win in every facet of life. And I think that's what I think is the biggest blessing just being in this program is just life lessons.
So right now you guys are in the midst of the summer off-season conditioning program. Mm-hmm. Coach Joe's working you guys out and. Run us through kind of, maybe a day in the life of what, a player goes through during these months. Obviously, there's not practices going on, so perhaps the casual fan or the fans don't really have a full sense of what is going on behind the scenes. So, walk us through what happened, on these days. What kind of goes through for you guys.
So the biggest way to do it is 4-day split for the viewers that do work out. They understand the split, right? 4-day split. Monday being the main thing being bench. Tuesday being the main thing being power clean. Wednesday off, but we have yoga. So being able to implement, do a yoga session and really just come in there and roll out, stretch out, and then do some extra work, whether that be recovery or whether it be, hey, just getting the guys together, running some plays or even going in the film room, taking the O-line, going in the film room, studying some new things with the Big 12, having some different, a lot of odd teams versus, playing a lot of even teams, in the Pac-12 with a lot of movement. And then Friday being, or Thursday being back, the biggest thing, they talk about on social media, having a big back, and they talk about eating and everything like that. But really that's the goal, to get the back as big as possible, nice and strong. And then on Friday we have the big squat, the famous big squat. It's Coach Joe's most exciting day. He always does it earlier. You log on social media, you get up, you go on social media. Which is probably a bad habit for everybody in our generation, but you get on social media, the first thing you see is Coach Joe squatting. I mean, you see the story, you see the circle, it loads up. It's Coach Joe squatting. You click on it and just say, like, hey, if the old man could do it, we can do it. And he's old. I'll be the one to say it. He's old. Can he squat more than everybody? He probably can. I still think he's old.
Old man strength is
come on. It really is. But I think it's important, the coaches, and I think that's one of the other things that I've noticed just being in this program is just having coaches that also do the same thing. Whether they're never going to ask you to do something that they themselves won't do. If some coaches feel like they need to lose weight, they go after it. Some people some coaches feel like they need to gain muscle, right, or do more conditioning. And I see it from the young guys from the GA just running miles, biking. From everybody from, Coach Dillon, Coach T, another guy, working hard. And then obviously Dyron Reynolds, he was roommates with my dad at Wake Forest, so some people don't know that. But big guy, vegan. I mess with him all the time. I ask, hey, some steak over there if you want some. But he works hard. He gets in the lab, and then obviously with the strength staff, they all get in the lab. Man, they come in sore. They roll out with us because they're like, hey, we did the same work you guys did.
So you don't have multiple days just dedicated to bicep workouts? Like,
No multiple days. Unfortunately, I know. You're right. I understand. I get it. But but he will give us some sessions though. He will give some sessions, especially in the spring. Hey, especially on some lighter days, we know that nothing is necessarily light. We will be getting the curls. We'll be getting the triceps right. A lot of tricep work. But as far as biceps, not necessarily. Right. Exactly. But strictly curls. We don't do that too much. But I think a lot of guys on the team still embrace it as much as they can.
You got to.
So let's dig in a little bit more on Big Squat Friday, because that's become something just kind of legendary. A lot of ASU fans really seem to really enjoy that. So it starts with seeing that story of Coach Joe setting the stage a little bit. Mm-hmm. What's it like through the players? Kind of walk us through a Friday, and who are some of the guys that have kind of really impressed and made their mark on Big Squat Fridays?
Well, I guess to start off the process, it usually always starts with a running or conditioning, whether that be team competition, right? Change of direction, games, stuff like that. Or it's just traditional, just running, right? Running condition, everybody knows, everybody in the country, we all condition. And so then, we always talk about that's the first half. The second half, you got to answer the bell. He lets the skill goes first and the bigs go after. And it's some guys that definitely stand out. CJ Fight was a guy that stood out last year, and then Jacob Kagaiga is a guy that was an addition this year. Terrell Kim is stupid strong. We don't understand what's even going on there. It's just kind of hilarious, right? Because you got to get a baseline. So just to watch him crush numbers, I think is going to be really important. I think he'll be the biggest bencher. I think he'll be the biggest squatter in my opinion. And I think
early enrollee, true freshman.
Right, and he came off injury. Right, so he didn't really have opportunity in the spring to really get any numbers. Right, so he's really just starting now. We've only been here 3 weeks, and he's just now starting to crush numbers. And he's always in that first, second, third rack. But as far as the process of Big Squat goes, we always start with something. Usually it's been like a snatch as the first thing. But whatever that first thing is, it usually goes by quick. And Coach Joe lives by the plus sets, right? So you start off with a tempo squat usually for the first one, right? Whether it be whatever the reps is, usually 5, right? So tempo squat, 6-second eccentric, 5, 5 reps, and then that goes down 4, 3, 2, 1, and sometimes he might add an extra one as we get heavier. And then from then on, he'll have a plus, right? So starting off early, he'll say, hey, this is lightweight, first week, 10 plus. Go get it, right? So people get crazy numbers, 18, 20, right? Comes down, hey, 8 plus, got to get 8. Comes down 6 plus, got to get 6. Come down 4 plus, got to get 4. Then it comes down, I think the lowest is that 3 plus. And so usually guys end up in the, lowest obviously being 3, but end up in that 4, 5, 6 range. And that's usually with the heavyweight that you guys see on social media.
So these months, just, again, kind of the fans don't get to see what goes on. You guys are obviously hard at work. Mm-hmm. In your experience, how important are these kind of summer months, all the hard work, the off-season conditioning, the running, the lifting? How crucial are these months to ultimately kind of figuring out the trajectory of a season?
I think it's super crucial. And Coach Dillingham says that everybody's doing it. Everybody's doing a PRP. Everybody's lifting heavyweight and throwing it around. Everybody's going to have energy. But how close is the team? How close can we get in such a small amount of time? And I think that's what pushes it over, because when you look to your left, your right in those crucial moments in the fall, right, this isn't a guy that's playing next to me. This isn't a guy that maybe is going to help me. This is really one of my brothers. And a lot of people say that, but a lot of people fail to kind of live that. And I think that's the difference between programs. We all have great facilities, right? We all have the training table. We all have the science. We all have the rehab, right? Everybody has, different things, maybe here or there, by 1 or 2 things, but everybody has the same basic resources that are needed. And really beyond that to be able to perform. And so I think the difference is made or break teams is that teams aren't close, right? The communication is a big era thing. You lose a game, a tight game, it's, pointing fingers. But if we're all in this together and we all have great team chemistry, we're all hanging out with each other, I think that's really important. So I think that's what will separate us in those close games. And I believe that if we, when we win games, and hopefully they're not close, but we know that that's the nature of football, in those close games, I think that'll be the one thing that we can look back on and say, we didn't win that game because anything different. We weren't necessarily stronger. We weren't necessarily faster. It's just that when it came to those crucial moments, our mental toughness and our ability to communicate and work with each other pushed us over the hedge.
So how much more difficult is it to build that camaraderie in this era of the transfer portal where you're cycling half your roster in and out year over year over year? I mean, you think back to when ASU had its magical run in 1996 to the Rose Bowl, that was largely with 3rd, 4th, 5th year guys that were reaching the peak of their time at ASU, and it all came together. when you've got guys that are only spending maybe 1, 2, maybe 3 years with the program, how does that make it difficult? Or what do you have to do in order to build that brotherhood, again, when you're having so many new faces year after year?
You got to work even harder. I think it's extremely difficult. I think that's what made teams continue that success, right? When you look at teams like Alabama, continue that success, you have guys that are there that have been waiting, right? And we talk about that crazy quarterback room with Jalen Hurts and Mac Jones, and you talk about the running back stables that you've seen, Derrick Henry making a call and telling his grandma he wants to go home. Those things that those guys waited, right? And they were able to be with those guys next to them. Some guys played, some guys didn't, but they were able to stick with each other and really see it through. And so now Dillingham preaches it's so much harder now because we really only have 2 months. We really only have that summer because the guys that are there in the spring, some of those guys will be there, some of the guys won't. So all that progress doesn't necessarily get erased, but you got to start brand new because you got to incorporate new players who will really help our team win. And so I think it's even more difficult. We really have 2 months. And so that's why even in our discretionary weeks where we're not required to be there, mandatory events, if you're going to go vacation, hey, you don't have to, but it won't hurt for everybody to go on vacation together, right? It won't hurt for everybody to go out there and have a trip to Sedona maybe on a weekend. And I think that it's really working. Before we came in here, and the biggest thing is, hey, who's watching the game? Where are you watching that? Jordan Tice said, hey, y'all come to my house. You had the fight on Saturday. There was multiple options. Jordan Tice said, hey, you come to my house. Hey, you can go to the facility. Guys split up, went there in different groups from wide receivers to D linemen, all different age groups, right? Had guys saying, hey, Lee said, hey, you guys come over to my pool, let's hang out. You guys come over to, CJ fight, come over to my pool and hang out. So I think it's really important because in the summer months, we really got to make that jump on the weekends to really merge together because it's crucial because we really don't know who's going to be on our team really after the semester's in.
So you're talking about video games a little bit earlier. As everyone knows in the sports and media and entertainment world, the NCAA football game's coming back here in just a handful of weeks. What do you think that's going to be like when that drops? I mean, are guys going to be, because it hasn't been around for 10 years, are guys going to be looking at their ratings like, oh, man, I got snubbed, I'm faster than that, I'm stronger than that. How do you envision that happening when that game drops?
Me personally, I think people will be excited, but everybody always has a criticism of everything, right? I hear everything about the Madden gameplay. Is it going to be the same thing as Madden, or is it going to be the old NCAA? Because in reality, we all know everybody wants to cheat. Everybody wants to be able to, to control the sticks, and whoever can control the sticks better, right, becomes the best player. And I think guys will be disappointed once they get in their ratings. What? My strength is this. My speed is this.
Everybody's got to be a 99 a day.
Right, and I think I have it easiest, right? I didn't even play last year. I could care less what the rating says because who knows if I'm even going to be in the lineup. I didn't even play last year, so I think it's really easy for me to say, roll the game out. I'm not the biggest video game guy, but I think guys are going to be disappointed, of course. But I think the biggest way to compare it is look at the Madden guys. They still care at the end of the day in the NFL when they see the Madden ratings and they see, like, wait a second. Yeah, but I think it's a lot easier for offensive linemen or maybe trench guys versus, wide receivers who are like, there's nobody that can catch me, right? Jordan Tyson's going to 100% think he's a 99 speed guy. I did see him get hawked one time in practice. That hurt. I told him that was one play, caught a quick slant. You take that to the crib for the offensive lineman. Yeah. You don't get stopped at the 10-yard line and we got to restart. No, you take that all the way to the crib. So
sending that tape to EA Sports, man.
That's what I'm just saying. It's a lot of fast guys. We're tough on him with that. He's a great player, but we're tough on him for that. But I think guys are for sure going to be disappointed. I just think my prediction is more skills, and I think just more discipline maybe in the gameplay, right? Because everybody has their opinion on the gameplay, how it should be. Everybody, of course, thinks they can engineer a video game better than the guys that do it. So
I got to ask, because Kenny has been very vocal in saying he's the best Madden player on the team. There's a video of him beating Jordan, I believe, in a matchup. A, is he actually that good? And B, has he played against Navi, who I believe it was like a lot of people have said he's the best player on the team?
I don't think he's played Navi.
Okay.
Navi's a quiet guy. I don't think he's played Navi.
All
but
right.
I do know that he has a plan. I don't know if his stick control is better than the guy next to him. I know that his plan, so I think that's what probably irritates him. I haven't seen Dillingham play, probably maybe once or twice. Just peeking in there, when everybody's kind of roaring around it in the players' lounge. So I think that's the one thing that's probably different is that his plays, I'm sure for sure work. But I think that just the nature of the video game, I think that's where he gets caught up with. Guys know the animations. I don't think he knows the animations as much as the other guys.
I haven't played Madden in a while. Do they have a swinging gate in there? I mean, can he do his thing?
The swinging gate might work. I think rumors, right? Rumors about NCAA, so maybe we'll see it, maybe we won't. But I'm hearing a lot of different things that you could do in NCAA, but I know in Madden, I'm sure he just plays the traditional.
And you opted into the game, right? I think
Correct.
Yep. So a big part of what Brad and I cover, obviously, is recruiting, and the coaches have been out there doing their thing, especially in the last month or so. I've always been curious: is that really on the radar of like current players? Are you aware? Do you pay much attention on recruiting for future classes, or is that just something that you kind of pay more attention to once those guys get into the program?
I will say when I was younger, I think I paid attention to it just a little bit more. And I think it's just as far as knowing exactly who the players are, right? Because they're players that are class. I mean, they could be the same age as you, right? If they're a little old for their class, they can be the same age. But I think as I've gotten older, it's more about you become another recruiting asset. You become an extension of the coaches. So you may not know as much as the coaches or the recruiting personnel know about the guy, but you try to develop when they call you and say, hey, recruiting dinner, let's be there. And I think the biggest thing that's been different with ASU is that you tell them the truth. I had Dillingham walk past me and he say, you tell them the truth. If you don't like your coach, you tell them. If you don't like this place, you tell them. Don't fake anything about this university. Don't fake anything about this program. You be completely honest about what you like and what you don't like. You tell them the truth because they're going to go everywhere else in the country and they're going to say it's the best place on earth, from being in the middle of Mississippi to down south in Florida, being Miami, so all the way to Penn State, all the way back to the West Coast, being in Seattle all the way down to California. Everybody's going to say that this is the best place. It has their pros and cons. So I think it's important all the coaches say is that, hey, the older you are, you become an extension because you've been around the block. You understand a lot of guys have transferred from other schools. You have a good understanding of what it's like to be here and compare it to other places. And the second thing being is that, just tell them the truth because that's all the kids want in the situation, especially as well as their parents. Tell them the truth.
So getting back to summer workouts, who are some of the guys that's really kind of caught your eye, whether it's newcomers or guys that's perhaps made a year-over-year leap in so far?
I think Zechariah Sample is a guy that's really fast. I know he won the speed demon of the league.
22.7 miles per hour.
Yeah, he's fast. He's rolling. You can see it. Just through some PRPs, I was able to see him run. I think it's really important, and I think that would probably be the number one guy that I think I've seen, just because I think I've had a good understanding kind of everybody else. But being able to see him, young guy, speed, and so I'm excited to see the other guys. Of course, Rodney Bimage gets his recognition, and I think he just kind of continued it. But I think the biggest thing that we've had, once again, going back to the team chemistry, is that it's kind of hard to tell who's doing good and if anybody's doing bad because I think everybody's out here, with the same goal in mind, and I think everybody's improving.
So last year, naturally, the offensive line took its lumps. It started in the spring with your injury, sadly continued all the way through. Is that something that you guys kind of take personally as far as make like a redemption tour out this year? Or essentially, how is the whole group going to use last year and all the bumps and bruises that came along with it, turn that into a positive this year?
I think that we just don't think about it at all. I think last year, as far as, from offensive line perspective, I think you have to acknowledge what the record was and what we put on film. But I think a bigger thing is that this is a new year. This is a new group. So we can repeat what we did last year. We can be a little bit better. We can be average, or we can be the best offensive line in the country is what we intend to be and what we want to be. And that's something that Coach Tuatelli, he preaches to us often, is that it doesn't matter what happened last year, good, bad, ugly. People are injured, not. I mean, it is what it is. So this is a new year, so who do we want to be? And so I think that's most important. And so that's what we do on a day-to-day basis, that we try to attack it to say, who do we want to be on a day-to-day basis? Because that'll add up to the grand scheme of things.
Other than yourself, give us an offensive lineman who you think is in store for like a breakout kind of season. Maybe a guy that fans may not know a lot about right now, but by the end of the year, they'll know who this guy is.
I think Max Ahanachor. Of course, he's a Nigerian guy. He's from SoCal. We're on a visit together, so there's a lot of things we have in common.
I hear he thinks he's good at basketball.
Right, that's what I'm saying. He says he's good at basketball, but I'm hearing Kyle Scott. The SoCal guys talk a lot. I try to let them know none of you guys are good at basketball. There's really good basketball. I grew up playing with the Mobley brothers, Evan and Isaiah Mobley, and so I was like, you want to see some good basketball players? Those are good basketball players. So yeah, of course, they're confident that I tell him, how about he just be a good football player? He could worry about that. But I think Max, he's strong. He doesn't know how strong he is. And I think he's much more mature, and you can see it in his eyes. So, last year when you talk about the strength training, I just didn't know if he really had the belief in himself, and now that we can see it, and I think that's important. To be able to have confidence in yourself. I think he wants to go to the league. I think he wants it now. I just think making that jump from JUCO last year, I think it was just a lot of moving parts, right? You start first with education. You're in a whole new place. You're just trying to navigate really being, alone for the first time. You're at JUCO. It's rough. but you're still at home, right? You're still at home with the same thing. You're still struggling, right? He didn't stay, personally at home, but you're still in that same area. You're still in that same funk, and then you move to Power 5 football, and you're thrown into the fire, and now you're on the road at Washington. What are you going to do? You're at Oklahoma State's coming home, right? They have a pretty good DA, and he's coming off the edge. What are you going to do? So I think that's more important for Max is he's gained a lot of confidence in himself in this last spring, and just understanding, being comfortable in yourself, being comfortable in your body, and then being comfortable in your abilities. He's gotten a lot stronger. He's super strong. He's got long arms. He's a longer guy. And so I think that's the biggest thing. Just being able to see him grow from a mental aspect is just something that everybody's been trying to push him, be hard on him. And I think he's finally turned the corner, so I think he's primed for a great season.
So he's only been playing football for a couple years, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Correct. Yeah, so I don't know the exact amount, but he was a basketball guy. That's why he still thinks he's a good basketball player. I try to tell him that there's a reason that you aren't still playing basketball because, 100%. So he probably should have started earlier, would have dropped it. Obviously, his brother plays football as well. I think it's just really important for Max because I think he really is prime, for a breakout season.
So let's switch over to the defense, and it doesn't have to just be the D-line. Anybody on defense, similar thing. Who's like a breakout candidate on defense that fans are going to learn about this year?
I think two guys that have been overlooked just the whole career, Justin Watley and Jeff Clark. And I think from Justin Watley, kind of from an overall strength perspective, stronger guy, but still has some finesse to him, but I think he works hard. We're really good friends. We hang out a lot, off the field. And then, Jeff as well, same situation. And Jeff's a quicker guy, right? So I think, the ability of them, I think if they played next to each other, I think that'd be really important. I seen Prince Dorba be a guy that has, been kind of caught up in his emotions. And once again, just matured a lot. Comes every day, focused, doesn't say too much. He's a Mavericks fan, unfortunately. So I'm glad that, I haven't checked him on the score, but hopefully that's done, right?
But if he's a Rangers fan, then that's a good one in my book.
Right, they kind of stretch because that's why I got to feel about Texas. They stretch out, and they're a Houston fan, but they're a Rangers fan, but they don't, they just claim the whole state. So Clayton Smith, Texarkana, and then now he's, it's just a lot of stuff going on. Whoever's winning at the time, right. So I'll give it to them whoever they want to support. I'm a big guy, of saying where guys are from. I call them out all the time. If you say from Riverside and you're not, if you went to high school somewhere else. We keep the debate going. I'm the biggest guy that'll be like, I don't know, especially if you're from Southern California. I know exactly where you're from, so no stretching there.
So ASU fans of a certain age will think back to 2012 and the three-way quarterback competition, and what we saw in spring doesn't necessarily kind of carry over into fall because in summer, Taylor Kelly kind of really made some big strides, kind of going back to the behind-the-scenes aspect of it. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to put you on the spot and say, a ranking or who you think, but ultimately, how the quarterbacks kind of looking and leading, during these months, kind of when, behind the scenes when you guys are putting in such hard work.
I think what I've seen is just them being able to help each other. Most importantly, all the way from Jeff being the newest, Navi being the youngest, and then you have Trent that's been around the block, the most. And so I think that's most important is that there's a lot of leaders on this team. There's not one voice. And there's a lot of people that I think that are, we always talk about leaders and motivators, right? Which one are you going to be? You got to be one or the other, right? Because if you're not helping the team at all. So I think there's a lot of people that are motivating them. And then I think they're also doing a great job of understanding that, hey, it's tough. It's awkward to have that conversation of who's going to be the quarterback. Obviously, we haven't seen too much with a lot of moving pieces. Jeff just getting here, so I'm excited for the fall. I'm excited for every single one of them. I think I have a great relationship with every one of them. Obviously, Navi being young, I watched his state championship game. Because one of his coaches was a former teammate of mine. And then obviously Trenton being here, and Trenton was injured when I got here. So we spent a lot of time on the bike just talking, getting to know Trenton, where he's from. Okay, you're from Tucson. What do you do? Getting to know about his Tucson turf and everything he does with that. And I think that's been very important. Sam obviously was getting a lot of reps in the spring. So being able to talk with Sam, seeing what helps us, what hurts us, and him making strides, being a sneaky fast guy. And then hosting Jeff Sims on the visit, talking to his mother, getting to know him. Me being born in Jacksonville and him being from Jacksonville, having that I guess in relation of just people or as individuals, I feel like I've been able to relate to each and every one of them in different ways. So I think that's been a blessing on my part. So I'm excited for each and every one of them. I trust each and every one of them to get to be at the helm, get behind center, and make it happen.
A program's strength and conditioning coach is often kind of one of the unsung heroes of what goes on ultimately on Saturdays. Joe Connolly's one of the best in the business. I believe last year he won a very prestigious award in that industry. What impact has Coach Joe kind of made on you, both kind of on the rehab path of getting back to being healthy now that you are fully healthy and strengthening up for the season?
I think the work is the work. I mean, he doesn't care about anything else, right? He's serious just about the work because, once again, everybody's doing this. What makes you different, right? The small things, the details, keeping the energy up, avoiding the lull. That was the big thing this week, right? We're avoiding the lull that people were getting that summer. Third week of summer, we're starting on the fourth week, right? We're getting lazy. You start showing up later. We want to cut all that out, right? Because we want to be able to make those strides. The biggest thing that I've learned from him is just trust the process for what it is. Biggest thing with those plus sets, you look at the weight, you look at the numbers from bench, whatever. There's no way I'm going to bench this number for this amount of reps. Just trust it. Go get it. Technique. Take a breath between every rep. Flex your core and go get it. And so I think that's just most important, is that he's taking people's belief farther than what they believe as far as in themselves. I think I'm fortunate to come from a dad that's, really hard on me. But a lot of kids, it come from different backgrounds. So it's easy for me to understand what it means to push yourself, right? To go in, like they talk about, going into that mode, going into that extra level, going to a place where you've never been and you don't think you can go. And so I think that Coach Joe provides a lot of belief in guys. We talk about, like Max, to understand that you can do this, but I'm not going to let it be easy. I'm going to force through bumps and bruises. I'm going to keep on you. And eventually you'll understand that, hold on, wait, I can go to that place. And eventually when that just leads into, one, of course, life, but when it leads into those games, we can look and be like, hey, man, we was doing some crazy stuff with Coach Joe. The last thing we're worried about is 4th and 10 on the road.
So position group that we haven't talked about yet is one that obviously you're going to be closely involved with, this running back room. My goodness, man. You look at it on paper and you really start to get excited. Not only do you have Scat coming back, but you get Raleek Brown. You get McCaskill coming over from Colorado. You got Jason Brown, a prime-time recruit coming in from the Seattle area. How excited are you to be blocking for these guys? And what do you see as far as, like, the diversity and ability to get everybody the ball and get everybody involved?
I think I want to do the same thing that I did with the quarterbacks, right? I think the quarterback is easier to have a relationship with, but the running backs, I feel like I did a good job. With Scat last year, I was injured. I still had a great relationship. Of course, the biggest relationship I was going to have with DeCarlos, being from Cal, right? Coming over here, living with him, being a roommate. So it's easy for me with DeCarlos. Raleek Brown, I'm just going to say, just put it out there. If every time you run Raleek's in, I only want to run outside zone. Just because the way his change of direction, his speed, the way he can get vertical. He's a smaller guy. It is what it is. But I've seen him run past people and they're wide open to make the tackle and they don't even see him. And so I think that's really impressive. You have Alton, who's a bigger guy, right? And he's way bigger than I thought. And I think that he's going to tap into what he did back at Houston. Everybody always talks about Scat, new, improved. I think his mindset has also changed. He's a rowdy guy, but I think he's learned to really keep himself composed. So I'm really excited just to see the maturity of guys that were here last year that maybe were immature for a fact, or maybe just had to take that next step of growth that happens naturally. So I'm excited because I feel like we do have a stable. We look at guys also like Sip that can't be overlooked, right? And everybody is different, and they all have a different game. Maybe some catch better, maybe some run harder, maybe some are faster, maybe some are quicker of change of direction, maybe some are smarter football IQ-wise. The biggest thing I always tell them is just block. You want to touch the field, block. And I was like, and the coaches can't deny that. There's a lot of running backs room. I tell each and every one of them, if you want to separate yourself, when that linebacker comes up and he's on that blitz, block. If you have to block a DN, no matter what it is, if it's a chop block, you have to block him straight up, block. The O-line messes up, make it right, because that's the number one way you can touch the field. And that's something that scouts will notice in the NFL always, is that this guy can run. A lot of people can run. Who can really block?
So that, brings up another question here. It's not their position coach or yours, but, man, you're talking about blocking for the position at wide receiver. Doesn't get much better than Heinz Ward. What's it been like having this NFL superstar be in this program? He's made an impact on the recruiting trails. What's the experience been like with him?
Well, I'm sure you guys can imagine he's a humble guy, right? So when he comes in, there hasn't been one mention of him being in the NFL, especially one from himself, right? I'm sure the wide receivers can speak on whatever that they've gone through, right, privately in their room. But from what I've seen, he comes with a smile, right? Comes with a big bucket hat. Or a Fisher hat. But the one thing that I noticed is that I was just watching film regular, and I saw somebody just get ejected out the film. I had to rewind it back like, whoa. Because anytime I see anybody else on like a skinny block, I told him, I said, hey, there's nothing better than when offensive linemen see a skinny block. It doesn't matter if the tight end make a block, wide receiver, running back, quarterback get out there and make a block. It just turns you up so much. So the number one thing that I saw is that I saw somebody get ejected, and I'm like, let me rewind this back for a second. And so it was Jake Smith, and he just blocked him so nasty. I told Jake Smith, I'm like, Jake Smith, I'm sorry to tell you, but if you block like that, nobody's throwing you the ball. And I said, I just got to be honest because we want to see that. So if you got to get water, if you're going to be tired from that post route and you want to block like that, I don't know. I think we'll keep it. We'll keep it. But I told him, I was like, hey, you block like that and get you about 6 touchdowns, I think you're going to put yourself in a real good position, to make this thing happen. But that was the one thing I noticed is that, like, Jake Smith is a guy that does what he asks. I think that's important. I think it showed that I've never seen Jake Smith make a block like that. I've seen him make an effort to. And I just understood, on the safety that, like, wow. I mean, I really was like, that was impressive for any block, right? From the footwork, from the hand placement to driving the feet to finishing the guy. And then get up and try to finish somebody else, right? Try to go find some work. So I think that's the biggest thing that I've noticed, that stride was made very quickly. And for the guys that would just adapt, take his coaching, I'm sure, all the wide receivers, by the time the season starts, the guys that'll be out there, they're going to block.
And as we mentioned earlier, over the coming weeks and months, folks, listeners, viewers, however you're consuming this content, you're going to learn a lot about Ben Coleman. We're going to see him on the road, see some adventures. It's going to be an awesome thing now that Speak of the Devils partnering up with Ben Coleman for the next few months. Hopefully beyond that, unless you got a nice little payday coming next year or something like that.
Right.
But for those who are going to learn about you, give us a little insight. What's Ben Coleman like away from the field? Hobbies, interests, fun facts, whatever folks should know about you, other than the fact that you play football.
I always joke around and say life too serious. Never take life too serious because you could die tomorrow. And that's just the reality. That's just kind of how I live. I love to joke around and clown. I like making people feel comfortable. I think that's the biggest thing that has helped me as far as on the football field and off is that, I don't believe that there's a lot of hate in the world. There's not too much love, right? So, the most love you can spread in such a short time. You never know what people are going through. You never know how that could impact somebody. Being able to treat people with respect. But I think that's just the biggest thing. I want people to always feel comfortable when they're around Ben Coleman. Always people want to, to be able to put a smile on people's face. But I want people to just be themselves authentically. That, hey, when I'm around Ben, I can be myself. Ben wants the best interest for me as an individual. Ben pushed me to be better as a friend, as a teammate. Just schoolwork. I want all young guys to be able to ask me, right? They ask me questions all the time. I kind of want to be that resource for guys to say, you ask me anything, not just football. You ask me personal questions, anything, and I have no problem spilling the beans about what I am, what I've been through, because I just really, truly believe that you never know how that can help another person. You never know what they're going through, how hard it is for people, and everybody's different. But joke around a lot, and I think I spend most of my time at the facility and exert most of that energy, because when I come home, I'm a very chill guy. Hang out, have a little scruffy white dog, play with her, lay down, and that's kind of it. Just kind of lay back.
Awesome stuff, Ben. Man, we appreciate you. Really excited. We don't even really know what we're going to be doing. We just know we're going to be doing something.
100%,
We're gonna get
100%.
some insight, and that's the good thing. You know what I mean? You don't want things to be too scripted. You know what I'm saying? We want it to be real. We want it to be raw. Man, can't say enough good things about this guy right here. So eager to see him on the field. Going after degree number 3.
Degree number 3.
One from Cal Berkeley, one from Arizona State University, and on its way. So, people are going to be asking, what are they? What were the first two, and what are you studying now?
Okay, so the first one was media studies. So I finished that 3.5 years at Cal, which was a goal of mine. In the coming year, my first master's in communication, and so this one is now digital audience, which deals more with like social media and social media marketing. Before I came over here, I had an assignment just talking about, essentially trying to run a campaign. So I think this will be kind of my most beneficial, educational piece that I've received kind of so far, because it really relates to what we're doing now.
Yeah, I mean, in this day and age of NIL and branding, I mean, that stuff is more important than it's ever been for anybody in whatever they're doing, certainly for college athletes. Well, my man, we truly, truly appreciate you taking some time. Obviously, this is just the beginning. You're going to be seeing and hearing a lot more from this guy over the course of the next handful of months. Trust me, you're going to love it. So, Brad, I don't know if you heard, but not too long ago, ASU finally hired an athletic director.
Really?
If you believe that much. Graham Rossini, of course. Obviously, we've talked about this at length, as have a lot of people. But we're going to bring back a very, very good friend of ours now to talk about that from some personal experience and professional experience and that sort of thing. A guy who's done quite a bit of work with Graham Rossini. So joining us now for, is it number 2 or did I miss any? We got to get the numbers right.
It's number 2. I'm trying to figure out if there's somebody who's 3 I could get like a quick sneak attack in this summer with the 3rd appearance.
Okay.
I need a
This
list.
is already figured out.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Okay.
So joining us now, I got to give the proper introduction. The big dog, head honcho, these are official titles on a business card, I'm sure, of Activate Sports Management, as we've discussed in the past, previously known as Activate ASU. heavily involved in the NIL space at ASU and at other universities as well. I am given to understand that no entity has done more NIL deals with Sun Devil student athletes than Activate Sports Management. The one and the only, the man, the myth, the legend himself, Peter Boyle, my man.
Good to see you guys. Thanks for having me
Welcome
again.
back. Okay, so what is the official? Because I like, kind of like colloquial thing. I like Big Dog. I don't know if that's official. Is that an official title?
I don't know if that's official. I don't think we're there yet.
Okay.
Need to get to that third appearance first.
Yeah, we get to number 3. That's Big Dog status right there. So let's start off. Again, we're going to talk a lot about, your experiences with Sun Devil Athletics, Graham Rossini, some really valuable insight that you can provide. But as we know, because I've told y'all, we've discussed it in the past, Activate Sports Management originated at the beginning of last calendar year. So here we are, just wrapped up the first full academic year of existence. A lot has gone on, not only in the last 18 months or so, but the last school year. What has this academic year been like, since roughly this time last year to the present day, in what you do for Sun Devil Athletics, Sun Devil student athletes, as, again, the big dog of Activate Sports Management?
It's been a lot. It's been a long year and a very short year at the same time. I think we covered it in the previous episode in depth, but as a brief recap, we started as a community organization, Activate ASU, about December of 22, so beginning of 23 roughly. And then over the last year, academic year, we've navigated and helping to start get NIL deals going with ASU student athletes, and then that matured through great conversation with ASU into becoming Activate Sports Management, actually being able to represent these student athletes. And then with the transfer portal world, that has ultimately led to us staying with some athletes who have chosen to leave ASU, which just gives us a broader depth of view of what the NIL world is like across the country, and can bring that back to help the student athletes that we do help here at ASU.
All right, so Graham Rossini, ASU's new athletic director. Obviously, that ends a many-month-long search. Now, obviously, you've dealt with him in the sphere for a number of times, and we'll dive into a little bit more in depth. But just kind of start things off. What was your reaction when you first heard that he was officially going to take over Sun Devil Athletics?
Yeah, so to back it up just a bit, I know we did talk about it before, but when I began the organization, one of the first people who reached out to me was Graham. At the time, I think was an executive associate athletic director or something like that. And so we actually had a meeting in person with him in January of 23, amongst some others, over at the Carson Center. And that was my first introduction to him. And since then, we maintain a professional relationship. He was kind of my primary point of contact for the past year and a half or so. So worked a lot with him both directly and indirectly in NIL efforts, and so was able to build a professional relationship with him and understand kind of how he thinks about things and how he works when it comes to particularly the NIL space. So when I first found out that he had officially been named, I think my initial reaction was being proud of him, thrilled for him. He's a Sun Devil. He's talked all about it. I don't need to tell his story, nor am I positioned to. But I think just knowing what this would mean to him as an individual and having built that professional relationship with him, I was ecstatic. I think I called it a great day to be a Sun Devil, although arguably every day is. So I sent him a nice note expressing some of that, which I'll keep private. But I think this is a great day and time for ASU athletics. I think you're already seeing the positivity that's come out of it. Joe and I were at the spring game together, and we're just kind of chatting and had talked to some boosters about what may or may not happen. And I think we said, hey, like, if we just give him the job, get him out there and let people see him and get to know him and understand him, they'll feel excited about the direction of ASU athletics. And I think you're starting to see that already. So I think there's a bright future in Tempe with Graham at the helm.
So it's no secret that the landscape of college athletics has just spun around on its axis many times over. Very different now from what it was, even 3 to 5 years ago. So the needs for athletics and the needs for an athletic director and the traits that that sort of individual must possess are a little different now than they may have been in the past. So in your opinion, what sort of traits does an athletic director need to have to be successful in this modern day of college athletics? And how does Graham Rossini stack up with those needs?
Yeah, so I think it's funny. It's changed since the last 5 years. It's changed the last 5 months and 5 weeks and 5 days. It's so rapidly evolving that I think it's difficult to fully grasp like what makes a successful athletic director in this new world, right? I certainly don't have the credentials to talk about that outside of the NIL world. I will say the NIL world is obviously a big part of being successful in athletic administration at the college, particularly Power 4 level. And so when I thought about answering this question, I wanted to share a story briefly around what I think relates to Graham's attributes and what will make him successful in this role, particularly in the space that's changing with revenue sharing, with the House settlement case potentially coming due, with NIL evolving, with schools being able to evolve, et cetera. So about a year ago, I actually don't think I've ever said this publicly, but I had an interview with a Power 4 university to take on an in-house NIL director role. And I got pretty far down the path to the final two. And ultimately, after a visit to campus, I wasn't chosen. And they went with a person who had been in college athletics for 30 years in compliance and in all kinds of things, right? And so they sent me an email, and I replied back on July 5th of last year, which were my thoughts and to say thank you. And I pulled that email up today when I was thinking about how I answer this question. And I read this as to go to show that this isn't an answer I thought about earlier today. That's something that's been on my mind for a while of how do you become a successful, whether it's director, agent, administrator, collective official, how do you get successful in this world? Because it's all brand new. There is no 10 years experience in this space. There's no 15 years. And so this is what I wrote. As rapidly changing a landscape as I've ever experienced, it's going to continue to adapt and shift daily for at least the next 18 months. A brand new industry was created 2 years ago, and just now institutions across the country are having a conversation that starts with something like, what do we do with this? The perfect person, perfect role isn't going to exist in the NIL space for a long time. Success in an NIL leadership role is about adaptability, courage, and humility. And so that was a year ago. So when I sit here and I think about Graham in this role and his attributes that I've gotten to know and seen in a professional setting over the last year and a half, I think he embodies all three of those things. So I think, one, adaptability. He has shown his willingness to step outside of his comfort zone, go to Major League Baseball, work on major projects throughout his time there, step out of his comfort zone and come back to college athletics, take on roles when it comes to navigating a move to the Big 12, changing in the NIL, now becoming the athletic director, everything he's going to have to navigate there, re-engaging fans, all the things we'll talk about. That takes an immense amount of adaptability. And from what I've seen from Graham over the last year and a half is an ability to do that. So I think that's key number one. Number two is the courage. Being able to adapt to all those things takes courage. It takes courage to say, I will take on an athletic director role at my alma mater, right? Because there's a chance you may fail. And so I think he has demonstrated that. It's the courage to lead through this space, the courage to lead through confusion from fans or people who flat out don't like this new world of college athletics. And how do you still re-engage them? I think Graham has shown their courage to do that. And the last is humility. I think in my meetings, and I'm not going to, we're talking about this off air, share contents of private meetings we've had because they weren't designed to be publicly shared. But I'll say that there have been times where things have been great, times where things have been rocky, things we've had to navigate through, just like any business relationship. And he has always been nothing but professional and humble. And I think you see that with him at games. Anecdotally speaking, I was at the last home baseball game this year. He had not been announced yet. Probably very few people in the building actually know who he is or can recognize him. And it was the bottom of the ninth, and he's just standing up and cheering and encouraging everybody else to cheer. Like, that takes a certain level of humility. At the end of the day, I'm just a fan. I'm just a Sun Devil, just like you, which he's talked about. And so when I think about what he brings to the table and his experience that will make him successful in this role through an NIL perspective, I think of those three attributes.
So, as many know, the biggest criticism of the hire is just the lack of athletic director experience. And obviously that's, a valid claim, a valid concern. So what do you think that Rossini needs to do, I'd say, like, especially in this first year, to be able to mitigate any sort of negative impact that a lack of experience could have? What would you suggest, that some of the steps are that he takes to make sure this tenure gets off to the right start?
Yeah, we were talking off air. I think there is a bit of an irony to a person who has spent 0 days working in an athletic department in any capacity, that's me, opining about how a new athletic director with no experience in the role would handle that first year. So I'll just say this when it comes to that. I think my only purview really is the NIL space and the modernization of payments to athletes, and those are the things I'm in each and every day. So I think the biggest thing, in my opinion or my view from him in year one, is to navigate those changes. That's going to be extremely important to the future of college athletics, particularly Sun Devil athletics. I think no one would sit here and pretend like ASU wasn't slow out of the gate with the first wave of changes, which was not under Graham. And so I think having the courage, the adaptability to be able to move forward quickly in year one with whatever these changes look like, and they could change, like we said, from 5 days to 5 weeks to 5 months. I think to me that's key to proving that that experience doesn't necessarily matter or lack thereof, that anybody who's in this space is inexperienced in this space at this point. So 20 years prior of experience in the college athletic director role doesn't necessarily set you up any better to navigate this change that's coming than it does having 20 years in corporate world in sports.
I mean, in theory, there could be benefit to a fresh face in that, because you may not want someone doing things an old way if that way does not, really include a mindset that is open to NIL and other, modern aspects about college athletics. So, Peter, through the work that you do, obviously you're engaged with, quite a few people across ASU, obviously with, high-level administrators like Graham Rossini and other folks that work either, officially in a capacity with ASU or in adjacent roles that are involved. What have you noticed? What have you experienced in working with some of those other folks in the time period? Obviously, it's only been about a month, but in the time period since Graham Rossini took the athletic director job, how have your interactions been with all the people that you work with?
Yeah, so I think first, just to reset, so I don't represent ASU or the Sun Angel Collective or any other group that's involved. We're our own independent private agency. Having said that, of the 41 or so student athletes that we represent across 5 different schools, 37 of them are at ASU. And of course, I'm also a Sun Devil. I live in downtown Tempe, steps from campus. And so it's fair to say that it's a bit different for us in terms of our involvement with those groups, especially now, than it would be if I was just Mike Smith from CAA or Sarah from Equity Sports or some other agent. So I think it gives us a bit of a unique seat at the table, even if sometimes that might be the kids' table. But we're in the room at times. And so still get a meal. And so I think, look, we've talked about this before. We were all trying to navigate this space for the past year and a half, and how do we do that together? And I don't think there's anything but good, well-intentioned people behind each of these different groups. And we had to find our way. And I think I have noticed, particularly in the last few months, since Graham was either officially or leading up to potentially officially being in that capacity, a notable change in the way that we attack these things collaboratively. Each have their own role. Obviously, each have their own tier of role. We've talked about in the past that today in the collective model, those collectives are everything. That's what matters most. That's what drives revenue sports and the athletes. But there's also coordination with corporate partnerships that both ASU has, but also NIL partnerships, groups that we work with, business communities who want to get involved but don't necessarily have the means or have the ability to get involved at a corporate sponsorship level the way traditionally would have, but they are interested in NIL deals. And so I think I texted you after a particular meeting, Joe, maybe like 2 months ago, right around the women's national championship basketball game, college basketball game, when we held an event. And I was like, I don't know what changed, but something did. Because all of a sudden,
There have been a few of those texts.
There have been quite a few of those texts in the last few months, because, and I don't know that I can directly contribute it to Graham, but I'd say at least tangentially it feels that they're related. We are working very well with Brittany, Zach, the great people at the Sun Angel Collective. Talked to them earlier today with Rachel, who's the embedded GM of NIL at ASU, which is fantastic. We've gotten to a point where we're talking just about every day. And as way of example, that women's basketball event that we put together with a corporate partner, Cold Beers and Cheeseburgers, who was fantastic to deal with, we threw that together in 4 or 5 days. Like from inception of the idea to getting all the relevant parties involved, to having that there, having media attend, having the athletes be there, did a great job. Joe, you were there. It was an awesome event. And it's hard to imagine that happening 6 months ago, and not to any fault of any particular people. It just wasn't the vibe. And now it feels like we are all rowing in the same direction. And it's a bit of a unique situation at times for me, because as an agent, it's my job to put the athlete first. But like we mentioned, it's a unique position. And so I think in working together with all the different groups, you're going to see some major change in the NIL landscape in Tempe.
So in your agent role and your work with Graham on the in the NIL sphere, how do you think he views, kind of, you obviously mentioned the rapidly evolving NIL space? How much does he embrace that? And how do you think that he's kind of equipped, given all his traits and your inner experience with him, for a potential post-house settlement landscape?
Yeah, it's not a conversation I've been able to have with him yet. I hope that we get some time to catch up over the summer and to hear his feelings on those things. But I would say from what I have seen that he appears to be as on top of these things as you can be. He seems to have opinions on where he wants these things to go. I'm not in those meetings as far as what they're thinking about approaching the House settlement or potential settlement or rev sharing or any of those things. But I can imagine with the way he has approached everything else the last year and a half in NIL, especially with us and with other groups, is that he wants ASU to be proactive in this space. He wants ASU to lead in this space. And I think with his experience, particularly in corporate partnerships, that there's a big opportunity to shift. And again, this is not something we've talked about. It's just my view to shift a lot of the NIL conversation to those corporate partnerships and to businesses in the Valley to maybe take a bit off of the individual donor. So we'll see if he thinks that way. I have to imagine as somebody who comes from corporate partnership world, which is the world that I come from, that's naturally where your mind goes when you approach kind of how do we do these things in the future.
Now, kind of obviously, with your experience, kind of combined with what you know of him and his background, obviously at ASU, also with the Diamondbacks and some of the things he was done there. I believe he's involved in getting the All-Star game here. Salt River Fields built, as well as his work at Arizona State prior to his promotion. Overall, just how do you think that experience and the kind of that resume has prepared him for the big task at hand with Arizona State athletics?
Yeah, when I view it, I think it's a perfect resume for particularly the current landscape of college sports, because it does need to be so relationship heavy when it comes to corporate partnerships. And coming from that world and knowing he's from that world, that's what it's all about: is connectivity, building relationships, tying threads, getting different people involved. And I think uniquely right now in this moment, even more so than 6 months ago, that is critical. And so, particularly with rule changes that allow for things now like corporate sponsor logos on the field or potentially on jerseys in the future, athletes' ability to use on-call activities such as team travel or post and pregame media to tout their corporate relationships, right? To wear a Spaghetti Shack shirt, to have, I'm trying to think of any, Adidas is a bad example, but any corporate partner, Powerade, or non-corporate partner, local business. And so I think his background in doing that and doing that at a high level puts him in a really good position to navigate Sun Belt athletics forward.
So if we were to break out the big dog crystal ball and look into the future a year and look back, so we're looking forward and then looking back. So follow me here. On the first year Graham Rossini as AD at Arizona State, what would you say, let's have a little fun here, what would you say 3 things are that need to be accomplished over this first year, or maybe whether it's accomplished or just notable progress on, to have things having a positive trajectory, to keep the fans engaged, keep the fans enthusiastic, that after year 1, okay, this is the right hire? What needs to happen? Yeah,
I think the first thing is probably going back to the topic we've covered several times here, which is navigating the forthcoming change. Just as a fan, a supporter, never mind the agent role, ASU can't be in a position where they fall behind in these additional changes the way they did to begin with. It's just taken too much work to catch back up. So I think
not only be behind, but be outwardly and outspokenly resistant to it.
Yeah, sure, it did. And I think the lean in that you're seeing now from coaching staff, from head coaches, from administrators, from the collective, from Graham himself, into not only what is NIL now and how do we best promote our student athletes, build brands for them, which is a bit of what we're doing here tonight, and also how do you navigate these potential court settlements. We're talking a little bit off the air, but it's not necessarily a done deal that the House settlement gets approved. There are other cases like Fontenot that are out there. Maybe that's a third appearance. We just do a deep dive on that, put people to sleep. But
a little white noise.
Yeah,
in the background. I gotta have TV or some sound going on when I go to sleep. So we can lull you to sleep. I've put plenty of people.
I can give you 30 minutes on the cases.
Put it on a good lube. Nice little. All right, keep going.
Yeah. So I think navigating change, honestly, is the first. This change could come as soon as next year. So I think having an approach that's adaptable, that's out front, that's courageous, that's humble, the words we talked about, the characteristics we talked about, is number 1. I think 2 for me is re-engaging fans. I know that is part of his background. He's talked about that as well. I don't know the details because that's not something him and I have professionally discussed, but I know that's on his resume, and I know he's talked about it at his introductory conference. But for reasons that have things to do with the ASU and reasons that don't, there's a lot of disengaged fans. And some of that is navigating change when it comes to NIL, when it comes to transfer portal, when it comes to recruitment. You just see a large group of fans that don't support it. They're not into it. And I understand that. But you still need to engage those fans. They still need to buy tickets and come to games and do all the things that he talks about and Kenny talks about, even if they don't want to participate in the NIL side of things. You need them to still say, I feel passionate enough about the front of the jersey to not care about the back. And that's a tough ask, but it's important. And I think if you have those fans engaged again in whatever way they want to be engaged, it's critical to the overall success of the program. It's critical to the revenue that comes in that can then be shared. It's critical to building a culture of winning and all the different things that are so far outside of my purview, but that as a fan I know are important. And so to me, I think that's number 2 in year 1. And then number 3, I spent time thinking about, and I came up with the word stewardship. So I think, ASU athletics is something that has existed long before any of us were here, including Graham, and will exist long after we are all gone. And so in whatever time he has in this new role, and I hope it's a very long time, I hope he's incredibly successful, and I believe he will be, his primary role is to be a steward of the program, right? To be a steward of Sun Devil athletics, to navigate changes, to get us to a new spot, to a better spot, to pass the baton 30 years from now. I'm just making up a timeline. And so I think that is key, is how do you repair some damage that's been done amongst the fan base, for right or for wrong, whether they deserve to be upset about it or not. I think to each their own and their opinions.
Especially because he can't control wins and losses this year, and that's not really on him.
No.
But that's going to dictate some people's view. They're going to say, oh, the football team had this record, then that's a success or failure on the athletic director, which I don't think is fair, but it is what it is.
I don't think so either, but you're right. People are going to think that, and they're entitled to think that. So hopefully, as fans, that's not the case. But if it is, I think you still got to find ways, and I think he will find ways to be a good steward of Sun Devil athletics and to navigate things like change, things like fan re-engagement, things like being out in the community the way that he is. And so that's one of the things I personally have admired about watching him in his professional capacity, is that he's at a lot of games. I get that that's his job. I'm not giving him credit for doing that. I'm just saying he will engage with you. You know that, Joe. I know that. We have friends that know that. Like I said, when I first started this organization back in the January of 2023 was when we met. I mean, I'm still nobody, but I was nobody. And he took the time to invite me to his office to sit in a conference room with multiple other people from Sun Devil Athletics, most of whom I'd never met, and just to listen to my story and why I launched this organization and why I did this and what I wanted out of him and how he could help. And it's an anecdote, but I'll close the answer on this, is after that meeting, which for those who know was an interesting meeting, but
I wasn't there, but I've heard the story.
It was a good one. And after that meeting, he shook my hand. He gave me his business card. He said, "This is my cell phone number, and anything I could ever do for you, let me know." And I sent him a obligatory "thanks for your time" text about an hour later. I really appreciate you taking the time. Nice to know you. All that stuff, right? We've all done that. And he texted me back in like 15 minutes, like a long 2-paragraph text that was like, "Here's why this is awesome. Here's why we appreciate you. Here's what we'll do for you. I'm a resource to you at any time." And that has proven true every day for a year and a half. And so that is why I'm a big supporter, is not because we're friends. We're not. It's not because we hang out socially. We don't. It's because that level of professionalism, doing that easy stuff all the way from top to bottom, it's not common. And in my work has taken me all over major business leaders across the world, and it's few and far between that you're getting that level of engagement from somebody at that high of a level.
And someone who sticks to it. I mean, you get lip service from anybody who wants to give you the pat on the rear end but kick you out the door. For there to be follow through, I think that says something.
Yeah.
ASU fans have obviously been through some tough years in terms of cheering on their Sun Devils and getting some the results to match, and so obviously they just really kind of at the end of the day want to see some successful programs, and some already are, some have some room for growth. How confident are you that Graham, now as the head of Sun Devil Athletics, is going to be successful in kind of elevating overall just the performance of the Sun Devils on the fields, courts, rinks, and et cetera?
I feel pretty confident. I mean, I think he certainly deserves the benefit of the doubt. And I understand some of the criticism. I understand some of the questions of the hire. I hear all that stuff as well, just like we all do. But he's a Sun Devil, and you can tell he cares, and you can tell he's passionate. It only takes talking to him one time, I think, for people to pick up on that. I'm hearing that from people who are meeting or engaging with him for the first time. So I think he has what it takes to be successful. I think this is a very difficult position and a difficult time in college athletics. So at the end of the day, who knows? But I believe if you're asking me today, will he have a successful tenure as Arizona State's athletic director? I would say very much so.
So Peter Boyle, this might be your second appearance on Speak of the Devils, but when it comes to NIL knowledge, you're number one in the hearts of all Sun Devil fans. Moving on to number 3, I like how you're already planting the seed, for future appearances. That's good.
I just want to know who's right ahead of me. I want to know so I can.
I'll have to
on the Jack Loader scale.
That was the thing. I as long as we get you past Jack Loader, that's the Mendoza line that we want to get you to.
All right.
And Herm, right?
Herm's at Kenny's already past Herm, so Herm's at like 6 or 7.
Just
trying to get to 3.
Progress is in the works here. But my man, truly, truly appreciate you. The fearless leader of Activate Sports Management. Some awesome things going on. The future is very, very bright, and certainly hoping that Sun Devil Athletics' future is very bright under Graham Rossini. So, Peter, once again, my friend, truly appreciate you joining us.
Thank you guys for having me again, and thank you also for what you're doing with Ben. Awesome kid, and I think you guys will have a great little partnership here.
Should be a great stuff ahead in the days, weeks, and months. And as we close out the show, here's a conversation with recent 2025 commit wide receiver Michael Scott. All right, here with new ASU commit Michael Scott. First off, coming off a big weekend at OT7, your performance drew rave reviews. Was reading a recent Rivals recap, just really raving about what you were able to do. How did you think you did out there, and what was that overall experience like for you?
So the overall experience was really good for me, especially because I'm a PA kid. So being able to showcase my talents around the world in front of like different rivals like 247 or on 3 and go against top prospects in the nation like 5 stars, 4 stars, and be able to just show everybody that can compete at the highest level and getting ready for college. And that experience was just fun, just building those relationships, because relationships and connections are the biggest thing going into college sports, and not even just talking about football, but also talking about in the jobs world, being able to talk to people, different social media guys, and like they sat down and talked to me how they do stuff, because that's like one of the things and one of the streams of income I want to do when I get into college.
And so one of the cool things there is you got the joystick nickname, which I think bodes pretty well. Take our viewers and listeners. What are the origins of that name, and just kind of how does that hint at some of the explosive nature of your game?
Yes, sir. So back when I was a kid, joystick was always like, I watched a guy named Dante Hall.
Oh, yeah.
And, Dante Hall, he was the human joystick. And so I kind of always just took after that name and just watched him and just like groomed, and not necessarily took his game, but like just took different things from his game, and also like Tavon Austin and people like that. Just watched them and tried to be the best slot receiver that I could be.
So let's get to the big question. Why was Arizona State the right place for you to continue your college career?
Arizona State, I love Arizona. Arizona, that was my first time down there. Phoenix, it's a beautiful city, beautiful state. Phoenix, Tempe, and Scottsdale are all so close, and it's like you don't have to go so far to get to where you want. Like there's always something to do down there. Like we did so much down on my official visit, like go-karting and everything, and just like also getting to the football aspect, just like Hines Ward, a Hall of Fame receiver. Now he's going to be a great coach for me and the rest of our recruits that we have. An amazing explosive offense. It's quick tempo, and it's a pro style, which will get me prepared for if I do get the opportunity to go to that next level. I'll be prepared. Amazing coaching staff. It's very loving, and hospitality is just amazing. And then they really show you that they want you to be there and need you to be there to be successful.
course, taking that visit out here, getting to meet these people face to face, seeing these things up close. You mentioned, getting fun things like go-karting and such. But
Yes,
what was the overall? What jumped out to you most during your time here and on your visit? Just kind of the overall impression of seeing things, face to face and in person.
Just how connected they were to their prospects and their recruits. Just how they spent time with every single one of us, not just singling one of us out, just spending time with every single one of us. And they showed us how they would use you in the system. They took the time out to take an NFL guy, a college guy, and then take you and implement you into their offense and show you different ways you can be used. And just they broke down my high school film and showed me things I can do to get better for the next season, show me things I already do well, and just gave me stuff to work on for that when I get back to the high school level, since I can just excel even more.
Getting to know some of the players and and getting to kind of know the student athlete element here, and just obviously the coaches can show you one thing, the staffers can show you one thing, but getting to know some of the current Sun Devils. What was your kind of read on the vibe and culture of the program that Kenny Dillingham is building here in Tempe?
Yes, sir. So I had a hostess, and his name was Caleb Black. That's my guy. He's a receiver number 17. And he took me around, really took me in like I was a part of the family already, which I am now, part of the family. But just the whole receiving room, was very just so close. It was like a brotherhood. You can feel it. They do everything together, literally everything. We went out and we had fun. We like I said, go-karting. We went out to eat and did all that stuff, and just showing how close everybody was. Just very made me feel good and made my mom feel good, because my mom came, and when she came, she was just making sure that she felt comfortable giving her son off to a coaching staff and a whole family and community for the next 4 to 5 years.
Kenny Dillingham's one of the youngest head coaches in major college football, but obviously with his ties as an Arizona State alum himself, and his resume as an offensive mastermind, what kind of things jumped out to you about Kenny Dillingham as the leader of a major college football program?
Yes, sir. So what jumped out to me is because he's young, but he's on fire. You can tell, he wants to succeed. He's ready. He's just you could when you walk in, when he walks in the room, you can't tell he's the head of everything, because he acts just like a normal guy. He's so laid back, but when he gets on that field, he's ready. What stands out to me is which I thought was crazy. It was crazy good. He plays Madden with his players after every practice, which is just that's just I don't know. That was just so cool to me.
Are you a good Madden player? Because he will talk trash to his players, and he's they put out some fun videos where he just is beating some of the guys. There's one where he was going against Jordan Tyson and put him. But so how do you think that you could match up against Kenny?
He was ducking. Against me when I went down there. He didn't want to play me. But when I'm coming back down there for a game day visit or something, I'm gonna play him for sure. I told him I'm gonna get him one time.
What does it say to you, to have a coach who does that? Because they even put out a video that's kind of gone a little viral yesterday, where he kind of played a prank on the players of saying having them plank, and the winners would get a copy of the
I know.
EA game. And so what does it mean? Just have as he likes to say, we're going to work the hardest while having the most fun in the country, and a coach who blends hard work but also just having that fun and chopping it up with the players.
That's my type of style of just being able to be a college athlete, because we're still kids technically, so we're still it is a job, but we still want to have those different spurts where we can have fun and bond as a team and get closer, because that's some of the most important things in a college football team, just having that bond with each other and that chemistry. And just I don't know, it just felt right. Everybody gets that feeling, when you get that feeling that it's the right place, you just got to be yeah. Because I had official visits get planned out that I wanted to plan, but I was I don't need to. This is the place, this is the spot I want to be.
So here in the Valley today, it's going to be 114. So as a Pennsylvania guy, you ready for this desert heat?
Yeah. Pennsylvania gets a little cold, but I don't really like the cold that much. So I said I didn't mind it. I didn't mind it at all, for sure.
So I believe Dallastown's kind of an eastern side of the state of Pennsylvania. So are you an Eagles fan, getting about ready to be coached by a former Steeler?
Nah, no Eagles. Cannot. Which is surprisingly, I'm from Maryland originally, Baltimore, and my whole family they're Maryland. I mean, the Baltimore Ravens fans and like all those like fans, and I like the Seahawks, the Seattle Seahawks. So
Oh, okay. I was worried that you're going to say Ravens there.
nah,
For, like,
I don't like the
Raven being
Ravens.
kind of
Nah,
twice. So you're talking about Hines. Obviously, you mentioned Hall of Fame caliber resume. A guy who has a Super Bowl MVP trophy on that mantle, as well as a couple of rings. What jumps out to you about your future position coach, being a guy with that pedigree?
Yeah, so just that pedigree, like you said, just that pedigree, Super Bowl caliber receiver, hopefully, Super Bowl caliber receiver, Super Bowl MVP, and things of that nature, and just like how real he is with you. He's not going. He didn't lie to me. He told me straight up of everything I need to do and work on, and I like that. I need that in a coach because I love getting better. I love working. I love competing, and I will compete when I get there. And he makes sure he says like I'm a hard worker. I already have that. All I got to do is just what he said. All he's gonna do all he will do is develop me and help me learn on how to be a better receiver on and off the field, be a better man on and off the field. And that's one of the things I cherish is most, having that connectivity and that just how close he is with all of his receivers and players and just how real he is.
In addition to posting over 1,000 catches at the NFL level, he was also regarded as the best blocking receiver of the generation, maybe all time. And his phrase during spring practice is kind of, you got to block to get the rock.
Yeah.
What is it? Obviously you guys want the ball, but what's your approach to doing those kind of the dirty work, the stuff that doesn't necessarily show up in the stat sheet in terms of blocking downfield?
Well, I love blocking, which is people might say it's crazy, but I love blocking just because when I get the ball, I want people to block for me. So I'm gonna have to do that dirty work because I'm a dog. Like I'm gonna work whatever I need to do to get better. Like he says you're gonna have to block, and I said I'm gonna make sure I block because I wanna be on that field, and I want our team to succeed. I want our team to succeed, and we all have to be doing our job for us to succeed in the future for sure.
For any ASU fans who might not have seen you in action or caught your huddle film or whatnot, give our viewers and listeners a self-scouting report. What kind of skills are you going to be bringing to this field?
Speed, quick, agility. I won't drop the ball, catch everything that comes to me. I'll block and make sure that our other receivers will get the ball. I can take in. I'm good at special teams. Like I'm good return game, return, punt return, kick return, anything they need me at. I'll make sure that I will succeed.
Of course, with Kenny Dillingham and his resume as an offensive mastermind, dialing up some pretty prolific offenses in his day.
Yes, sir.
Marcus Arroyo as well, in terms of what he's been able to do at the pro and college levels. What in your time getting to know the scheme that ASU runs, what kind of jumps out to you in terms of how they like to use their wide receivers?
Yeah, just their quick tempo, just their quick tempo offense, how they keep getting back on the ball, and also like I was speaking on earlier, how they show my high school film and then show their film and show how I already run the routes that are in their offense basically. So it's like that adjustment is going to be like this. Like all I got to do is just basically like the same plays, just different names. So that's just what stuck out to me, just like the same route combinations and stuff like that, which I just love because it's going to be an easy transition from high school to college. I feel like if I have the right people around me, and I know I have the right people around me at Arizona State.
And then you'll be playing in year 2 of ASU's experience in the Big 12 conference. And
yes, sir.
What were your thoughts on just playing some major college football in a conference that is pretty renowned for some hard nosed football?
Yeah, when I heard that they were switching to the Big 12, I was like, yeah, love to play schools like West Virginia, Houston, like Colorado, just those big stage names, and really showing that we can succeed at that level, especially with our recruiting class coming up, like Puka, Adrian, CJ, like all of them, like Butter. Like our class coming up is going to be scary, and I've been telling everybody that.
So you got one season left at the high school level. What are some of the goals that you have outlined for this final season, and also some of the things that you want to work on over the course of that season to prepare yourself for making the jump up to major college football? Yes,
sir. So some of my goals are just us winning, having a winning season, like 9-1, 10-0, hopefully going undefeated, because that's always the goal. Us getting to that, this team that we have right now has been together since Cougars, and we've been dominating everybody since like young little league, and now we're gonna do it now. We're striving to be the best, and we want to be the best, and we just harp on going 1-0 a day. So we're not trying to focus on so much in the future, but just focusing on one day at a time. And But some goals I have for myself are just being able to get the ball in short area quickness and showing that I can take it 85 yards, 90 yards, 100 yards maybe on kick return. Just getting bigger in the weight room. I've been lifting, getting bigger, gaining weight, gaining healthy weight, like slowly processing. Because I know when I get to that level, when I get to the college level, they're going to put on weight on me regardless. And just getting quicker, faster, getting my hands right, getting out of my breaks faster, just everything, just doing all the little things so I can be able to play on the field early, and just getting my IQ right, football IQ right, just learning how I can run different routes and different coverages and like learning coverages.
And that's going to do it for this episode of Speak of the Devils. I'd like to thank our great guests, Ben Coleman, Peter Boyle, and Michael Scott. Now, as you mentioned, it is the heart of the offseason, but that does not mean things are not going on. There's a lot going on with Sun Devil Athletics. There's a lot going on with Speak of the Devils. Best way to keep up is on social media. You can follow us on Twitter at SOTD Podcast, on Instagram at Speak of the Devils. Subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook and give me a follow on all things social at bdenny29.
And you can follow me as well, Joe Healy42. A huge shout out and a thank you of a large size to our incredible sponsors, Jones Auto Group. If you need a vehicle, get one from Jones Auto Group. That's pretty much the bottom line. That's all you need to know. Check them out. They do great things to support the Sun Devil community, well deserving of your support and patronage as well. They take great care of all Sun Devils there at Jones Auto Group. Also, of course, our good friends at devilsdigest.com. You always got to be a subscriber, always got to be in the huddle. The news is always flying out. Recruiting does not stop, and before you know it, fall camp will be here with a ton of coverage by Hode Rubino and all the good folks at devilsdigest.com. Cactus Sports, be sure to visit the store location on Mill Avenue or shop online at cactussports.com. A lot of great gear flying off the shelves. Not too long ago, I finally picked up my Iron Devils shirts. I'm going to talk about that like every week until I don't talk about it, because I've been waiting for those items for as long as they have existed, and they've just been dangled over our heads, seeing all the athletes wear them. Of course, they deserve to do so because they're earning it right there. But you know what? I wanted mine as well. Finally able to make that happen at Cactus Sports. Got to give a shout out to our awesome food sponsors. First, Burrito Express. Check out any one of their numerous locations across the valley. Of course, they are die-hard, firm supporters of Sun Devil Athletics, deeply involved in supporting Sun Devil student athletes with a variety of different NIL deals that they have. You know that they're passionate about what they do. Also make some incredible grub, so go chow down at Burrito Express. Spaghetti Shack. I'm rocking a Spaghetti Shack shirt right now, so that ought to tell you something. Get yourself a meal at Spaghetti Shack. They have 2 locations in Tempe, one very close to ASU's campus, so check them out, support them. As always, we tell you, not only Sun Devil owned and operated, but owned and operated by a former Sparky the Sun Devil. And lastly, but never leastly, Sun Devil Family Charities. Check them out at sundevilfamily.org to find out ways that you can support this wonderful organization that supports folks from the ASU community that have financial needs due to medical issues.
And also be sure to support homefieldapparel.com and their amazing ASU collection. Super comfortable, amazing vintage designs, all kinds of stuff, nearly 30 items in total. Plus, they're also dropping an NAU collection for our Lumberjack friends. Of course, you know, if they beat the Wildcats a couple years ago, maybe support them there. And your first purchase is 15% off with offer code SOTD23 at checkout at homefieldapparel.com. And also be sure to give us a 5-star review on the podcast platform of your choice. Joe and I will be back fairly soon at some point. You know, the season,
it's summertime, so we don't know exactly when, but it'll be soon.
It'll be soon, and it'll be good, and it'll be fun. See you then.